Yes.
Mr. Jammeh, the floor is yours. While we wait for Mr. Jammeh to have his presentation ready, I'll just give a brief introduction of the topic he's going to delineate on.
Hello.
It's about trend in exchange rate management in the country. As we know, exchange rate is one of the parts. Yes, Mr. Jammeh?
Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for the introduction, and thank you for your kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, the moderator has already indicated the topic for discussion, and without much ado, I'll go straight into the business. Let me begin by thanking some of the partners that assisted me along this journey, where I obtained data to be able to do this presentation, which includes the Central Bank of the Gambia, both personnels and their data center, the IMF press releases and reports, and the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System websites and reports, and so many others. Please take note, in this presentation, I will be making references to FX, foreign exchange, by using terms like FX and Forex interchangeably. The terms mean exactly the same. Data was collected from 2007 for volumes, and exchange rates were collected from 2004 up to 2000 and up to 2023, April 2023. We'll make an overview of the international market and the domestic market with some numbers for better understanding, to be followed by implications of the study, my observations, recommendations for policy consideration, and conclusion. I only hope time will allow me to go through all these slides, but let's get the let's hit the ground running. International market overview for foreign exchange. It is the most influential market in the world today. The New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, the Tokyo Stock Exchange, these three are the largest security markets in the world. The combined trading volume of these three hits $300 billion per day. The foreign exchange market, on the other hand, pulls a combined trading volume of 6.6 trillion US dollars, according to the Bank of International Settlement. This daily trading figure is higher than the GDP of the entire African continent. It's also higher than the GDP of India, a country with a population of over 1.4 billion people. Thus, the forex market is such a large market, basically for the following reasons. One, globalization, which allows the international movement of goods and services among nations all around the world. Two, for comparative advantage reasons, businesses around the world are increasingly reliant on the global supply chain, and comparative advantage allows specialization and efficient allocation of global resources. Domestic market. Data obtained from this research reveal that up to December 1985, the Gambian dalasi, our domestic currency, was pegged to the British pound sterling. But this fixed exchange regime created so much government control, which was later abolished and replaced by the market-based floating exchange rate system in January 1986. And the objectives were as follows. One, to deepen the interbank market. Two, to introduce a market-determined exchange rate. And three, to minimize government control of the exchange rate market. In addition, in 1990, the government introduced the licensed foreign exchange bureaus as part of the same objective. The total number of banks and bureaus, referred to as BDCs in short, currently stands at 11 and 165 respectively. And you can see this in the table below. The number of banks went up to 14 sometime in 2010 and 11 due to increased entry of Nigerian banks mainly. From 2005 to date, the total number of banks increased by 36.4%, while the BDCs, Bureau de Change, grew by a significant 81.22%. We just represented that table on this graph, as you can see. Bureaus in orange color, and you can see the significant growth there compared to the banks. The entry of Nigerian banks in the Gambian forex market, starting with Guarantee Trust Bank, GT Bank in 2002, had greatly helped to improve financial inclusion and increase competition in the FX market. The other banks that follow include Access Bank and many others, as you can see in the list. However, we might not be able to continue we might not be able to read the entire list due to the time constraint. However, May 5th, 2014, The Economist reported that two local subsidiary banks of Nigerian subsidiaries of Nigerian banks, Access Bank and Bank PHB, plus Prime Bank, a subsidiary of Society General Lebanon, were taken over by the Central Bank of the Gambia, nationalized. One, which is Access Bank, was returned back to private hands on the 12th of May 2014 after a capital injection from their parent in Nigeria. This graph, this table, which is table 2, shows you the industry volume obtained from the central bank thanks to the website and the personnel systems. You can see the volume separated into the major players, that is the total on banks, total on BDCs, Bureau de Change, and the last column showing you the total market, total industry contribution in terms of FX trading volumes. We'll show you the rates in the slides to come. Now, this other table you're looking at, instead of the players, it separates the volume into purchases and sales, and you can see a significant drop in 2015, and we'll look into this in the slides to come shortly. We just graphed that previous table, this table, and graphically to show purchases and sales, and you can see purchases down and sales up, meaning we are selling more than we are purchasing. So there is a shortage, showing a shortage of FX, and this graph shows a remarkable shrink in 2015, as you can see here, and that we will look into again why this happens in 2015. During the period under review, banks and Bureau de Change, which is BDCs, in volumes grew by a margin of 51.3 and 90.33 respectively. The high percentage growth registered by BDCs can be associated with a significant growth in the numbers registered from 31 in 2005 to 165 in April 2023 so far. Overall industry annual volumes of FX traded grew by from $1.58 billion to $2.48 billion, all currencies combined from 2007 to 2022. 23 is not complete, so I decided deliberately to remove that, registering a 57% growth over the period in terms of volumes. Sorry. So what actually happened in 2015, showing that significant shrink in terms of volumes? An IMF data was searched, and it explained the sharp decline in 2015. According to the report, a regional Ebola outbreak affected the tourism receipts of foreign currency, compounded by delayed rains leading to poor crop season, which had significant implication on food security. All this happened amidst weak policy implementation the government was faced with. A significant spending pressure also emerged in April 2015. This ended up putting pressure on the exchange rates at the onset of this lean season, okay, for foreign currency receipts. As a result, the authorities, that is the government, issued a directive fixing the exchange rates at a level overvalued by more than 20% compared to the prevailing market rates in May. The exchange directive materially damaged the economic prospects and fiscal situation of the Gambia. The country's fiscal sustainability was put into question. It was put into grave risk. The mission, therefore, urged the authorities to immediately rescind the exchange rate directive and return the country to a flexible exchange rate policy. So we will look into the data for 2015, January to December, what happened. And that's the slide you are looking at. And you will observe that in this slide, okay, in this slide, you will realize that the buildup of the problem started well before July, but market started feeling the impact from July through August up to November. And if you look at the rates too, you realize that rates will remain stagnant at 39, proving that there was a directive to fix the rates at that rate. So this is what led to the problem of 2015. So whatever is forced breaks. So we have to take note of this. This is an important slide for us to take note of. Okay. This slide looks at the exchange rates from 2004 to 2023, showing the major tradable currencies, with the base currency dollar moving against the dollar significantly. The results were as follows. GBP, the dollar depreciated against the GBP by 38.24, USD by a significant 105%, and Euro by 81.3%, and XOF, which is ZOF CFA, locally referred to as SEFA, by 72.4%. So dollar has depreciated against all currencies. So we graphically represent this to show the spikes from spikes in exchange rates from 2004 to 2023. I'm sorry, I'm moving this fast because of the time. These are sources and uses of foreign currency in the Gambia, and I will not spend much time on that. I will look at the trading and methods of international payment. The primary approach to trading in Gambia is mainly via spot transactions. They buy and sell, conduct lots of spot transactions, either internally or with the aid of their correspondent banks, under very strict regulatory and compliance standards. Derivatives such as futures, option contracts, and forwards are hardly used as hedging tools in this forex market, in the Gambian forex market. Methods of payment, international payment, includes advance payment, open accounts, documentary credits, and LCs, letters of credit known as LCs. It is also, the LCs are also the most secured method of international payments, international settlement, as due to its safety, flexibility, and reliability. Let's now look at the implications of the study. To understand the implication of high exchange rates, we must first understand the effects of speculation. When a country's currency is expected to rise in value, for example, if the USD is to rise in value, investors will demand more of that currency in order to make more profit. As more and more investors demand for the currency, its exchange rate relative to other currencies will rise and get stronger. The stronger the currency in the market, the higher its exchange rate. Furthermore, the general increase in prices of goods and services over a period of time is referred to as inflation. Mr. Bojang mentioned this in his presentation previously. Practically speaking, in the Gambia and elsewhere, the movement of exchange rates play a significant role in this. As our domestic currency depreciates against major tradable currencies, exchange rates tend to move up. They tend to go up. Traders are very much aware of this, and they ensure that they add every margin of increment of exchange rates to the prices of goods they sell, making them more expensive each time. You know, as a continuous rise in exchange rates will lead to higher prices with inherent inflationary tendencies. To control inflation, central banks, including our own, will often increase interest rates that they charge on commercial banks. Commercial banks then pass on these high interest rates onto their consumers, that is the customers. A exchange high exchange rates leading to inflation and higher interest rates tend to reduce our purchasing power and affects our loans, our national debt, what we call sovereign debt. It affects our pensions, it affects our insurances and other financial instruments we may be holding, which affects the lives of everybody. Now, observations. Let's look at the observations. The Bretton Woods Conference, held in 1944, set a gold standard for the currencies. The conference led to the culmination of the World Bank and the IMF. It also set up the guidelines for a fixed exchange rate and fixed the price of gold at $35 per ounce, with all participating countries pegging their domestic currencies to the US dollar. It sounded nice and simple, but it did not last, as it all crumbled by the year 1970. Similarly, we all witnessed the presidential directive severally imposed on the forex market to peg the US dollar during the time of the previous regime, which never worked. The issue was not only about its blatant failure to stabilize the exchange rates, but also its monumental consequences on the FX market. One, causing excruciating revaluation losses for most commercial banks. And two, encouraging unprecedented level of unreported FX transactions, which goes to affect the reliability of the central bank data. I must acknowledge the amazing efforts the central bank is making to help stabilize foreign exchange in the Gambia. However, the use of the existing reference rate, by all indications, appear to be following a similar trajectory to the directives that we saw in the previous regime. For me, it only provides a cure worse than the disease itself. Thus, I think it needs an urgent review, and I will tell you why when it comes to the recommendations. Okay? Our little understanding of economics convinces us that fighting the law of demand and supply is like fighting a flow of water from the riverbanks. Surely, at the end of the day, the continuous forces will outpower all your efforts and win out completely. So this is important to note. The way we are handling foreign currency rates, managing foreign currency rate matter. Whatever is forced breaks. Take note. Recommendations. The first recommendation, number one, is to ensure production. Whatever central bank is doing in terms of their efforts of mopping up and injecting into the market when there is a shortage, only temporarily short-term measures to correct market situation. The absolute and correct and more permanent solution to our FX problem is production. Managing our productive sectors, which includes our manufacturing sector, our mining sector, if we and service sector as well. Agricultural sector without losing sight of the animal husbandry and and uh, and poultry as well. These are important things. The excess of the excess coming from all these sectors, when exported, delivers will deliver excess foreign currency, which will help to kind of sort out our supply end. The second, to increase production is not an end in itself. What is important is to ensure that there is control in terms of waste, because there is so much foreign currency required to do import of these goods into the Gambia. So if we do not control the waste, it's a problem. The United Nations Environment Program Food Waste Index reported in 2021 that 931 million tons of food get wasted in Africa, in Gambia, in the world. Africa's contribution of this is 108 million tons. Convert this into dollars and see. And I have figures for many countries. Unfortunately, I don't have that of the Gambia. So combining these, managing waste and increasing production by managing and improving without losing sight of our productive sector, which includes mining, agriculture, and services. We should also ensure industries are protected by ensuring that we put a block or a tariff on goods that are possible to produce in Gambia, and we invest resources in those areas so that we give them the advantage to be able to do exports. So this three-dimensional approach to production will help a lot to bring in more foreign currency for the Gambia, and that is increasing output, maintaining, minimizing waste, and introducing tariffs to protect our infant industries. The three are not mutually exclusive. They are complementary to each other. They are supposed to be complementary, and this is what I'm trying to say, graphically represented. Where?
Less than 3 minutes, Mr. Gwame.
Thank you. Second is the introduction of an official FX buying and selling rate. The existing reference rates, as I mentioned before, this approach, in my view, has been and is still problematic. Problematic in producing the desired results for the following reasons. One, it has created enormous resistance and tension in the forex market, with some negative consequences such as unreported and undercover transactions, which will undoubtedly affect the reliability of the central bank data. That's one. Two, it is also a one-sided affair, setting a floor for market buying rate only, enforced mainly, and I repeat, on banks. The reference rate is provided by only is provided for only the base currency, the USD, and as such, the exact equivalent at which traders should trade the other major currencies can differ from one bank to another, from one bureau to another, from one player basically to another, to be more precise. It creates a confusion it creates a confusion as there exists a mid-market rate which was in use for all valuations, okay, and it's still useful for valuations. So if you have a mid-market rate, you also introduce a fixed, what you call a reference rate. Come on, the two are doing the same thing. I hope it's not a duplication of effort. This, given the fact that the rate setting is benchmark on the movement of international cross rates. All right, international cross rates. I recommend that the central bank introduces a daily broadcasting of the market buying and selling rate on a daily basis. And to help the market, I just put a sample diagram on this slide, and you can see it's not for, it's just to exemplify the way to make the broadcasting. And I also suggest that if this comes up, it should also be enacted in Parliament. It should be enacted in Parliament through the Ministry of Finance to ensure compliance.
Can you summarize the rest of the presentation?
Okay, the next one is the Bureau de Change. We realize, if you look at the previous slides, you realize that they are coming in large numbers. And I also got signals that, you know, some brakes have to be applied, or slowing down the way they are coming to register. So to avoid all these things, I'm suggesting that the capital requirement for BDC registration be raised up. Okay, once this is raised up, it will force them to, it will kind of oblige them to merge, or force some kind of acquisition of many of the small and inefficient establishments littered around the country. This will reinforce control and operational efficiency. Now, these other slides, maybe let me just go to the other one. Okay. Participating in the...
Thank you, Mr. Jame. We seems to be against time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think time will permit us. So thank you for that. It's been a brilliant presentation. Starting with the historical dimension of the exchange rate in the Gambia. When we moved, shortly before the 1986, was a currency board that was pegged to the pound. Then, with the structural adjustment programs coming in, then it was floated, and it was consolidated in 1990. And here we have, but intermittently, especially in the last regime, we've been having a lot of the times directives that sort of control the exchange rate. But as we have it today, according to deliberation, we have a managed floating. But the problem of exchange rate shortages, it's a major problem that the country is facing, as you have indicated, that all the times our purchases are usually higher than our sales, and the volume is increasing enormously with the bureaus as well as with the banks. Another very important point that he pointed out was with the coming of the Nigerians, financial inclusion has improved, and there was a special case in 2015 that was due to supply side shocks from the Ebola and the drought from the agriculture sector also, which led to some directives, and which was later rescinded when the IMF came in. But all this summarizes one thing, that we still struggle as a country with having enough of exchange rate forex to be able to import necessary items for production to take place. And he rightly so came up with some policy recommendations, and which are like what he called the three-dimensional approach to this, in which he talks about the need to improve production, basically the need to improve exports by improving production, domestic production of the export goods, as well as ensuring that imports, we don't import things that we really don't need. through promoting our infant industry, protecting our infant industry. That argument is important, as well as ensuring that what is produced doesn't go to waste. These are very, very important things that need to be instituted. So it was a brilliant presentation there. So congratulations, Mr. Jame. So we have, I like to ask this question. So the instability noticed on the dollar say contrasts with the relative increase in the foreign capital flow, besides the 2018 decrease, which economic policies needed to be investigated to create a stable currency by avoiding exchange rate losses being inflicted by the dollar depreciation, some of which you have actually pointed out, but we do want to deliberate on this, Mr. Jami.
Thank you, Doctor. Like you said, I have already touched on this point, but let me say to expatiate on what I already said. We all know, the inflation that we are all crying about today reduces the pocket size of everybody. Everybody. If you earn $10,000 today, and inflation increases by 10%, and inflation, as I indicated before, is triggered by the movement of exchange rates mainly. It plays a significant role in triggering inflation. So if, as a result of that, inflation happens, the same 10,000 will not be of the same value the following year if your salary does not increase by a certain margin. You will not be able to afford the things that you are able to afford with the same salary the following year, because inflation has increased by 10%. You would need that much to be able to buy the quantity of goods that you were able to buy the previous year. So obviously, all these problems we are talking about are as a result of the exchange rate problem, because people who import goods, they import at an exchange rate cost. So they look at that. If that goes up, they add it on the prices of their goods. So if they add it on the prices of their goods, obviously, it becomes inflationary. And to control inflation, obviously, central banks have no choice but to also look at the interest rates. So the effect of foreign currency is both on exchange rate, is both on interest rates and inflation. So therefore, if we do not look at this, what we call the reference rate issue, which is causing a lot of commotion in the market today, and there is a lot of resistance we have. So as I recommended in my presentation in the deliberations, I recommend that this, with all the problems that I associated with the reference rate, it be revisited, and for countries that have revaluation rate is as good as mid-market rate, is as good as the reference rate. So why are we having it, using it as a benchmark for trading? It could be used for revaluation. For example, if you go to the ports and they are making their charges, they can use that rate as a reference rate. If you go to the borders, transit rates and so on, you can use those rates. But at the same time, the mid-market rate was serving the same purpose in the past. So why the change? So what we need really to correct this problem is to ensure that there is a market buying and selling rate that has become law for all players, not only for banks. Because what is happening is that it's forcing some traders to transact at a rate and report at another rate, because they cannot disclose their actual rates to the central bank. It's very problematic. So this exchange rate issue, falls under the purview of the central bank, really. And secondly, the bureaus that we are seeing, I think there are too many. One bureau can have 40 branches. And now we are talking about 165 bureaus. If the average number of branches is 20, or 10, if you take it, so you will have a lot of inefficient uh, 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 bureaus or bureau locations that will make management of these
Okay.
enterprises or these institutions very
Okay.
difficult.
Okay. Yeah. Thank
Yes,
thank
Doc.
thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Brilliant answer. I'd like to ask a further question from your presentation regarding the
Oh, okay.
reference rate, yeah, which you're suggesting. For someone who favors a market-driven exchange rate and might be confused with how a reference rate um, um, can go in tandem with a market-driven exchange rate determination. Could you please clear that out for us?
Okay. So what I'm trying to say is the reference rate. If you look, you can visit the central bank website. All banks have been go to that website to check what the central bank rate is, and they use it as a benchmark for buying. And there is a restriction on going too far away from it or not using it. So obviously, it is a trading rate because it's used as the benchmark for trading. I hope you get my point.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
Yes.
thank you so
So
much.
that's
And my last question would go in. I will ask this regarding fiscal sustainability, which some way relates to to exchange rates. What measures can be taken to ensure that
okay.
we have fiscal sustainability, manage the national debt, and enhance revenue collection without burdening the population? On the public finance side of it.
To ensure fiscal sustainability, my view is that we must align our tax policies to expenditure policy. Yeah, we must also uh, manage interest rates very well, um, and this is under the purview of the central bank. They are
Okay.
already
Okay.
utilizing the bonds, but the tenure is a bit shorter to be able to manage uh, uh, debts because I mean the maximum period for it is 3 years, and there is a coupon payment every 6 months for for these tenures that if it is 1 year or more than 1 year, there is also 6 months and so on. So these are ways of managing that. And I think the introduction of a workable capital market with long-term instruments will also help a lot in managing the national debt. As you know, the GDP debt ratio for the Gambia has come down from 120% in 2017 or so around that end down to 84% now in 2022, as per the IMF data I have gathered, right? And the import cover also has improved from 2 months cover to 5.1 month of import cover. They are good signals, but we must continue to also make tax payments in terms of, you also asked about revenue, right? Tax payment as inclusive as possible. Yeah, we must make it as inclusive as possible. We must keep our tax burden lower, taxes lower, and broaden the base, okay, as much as possible. As the tax base broadens and participation, payment participation increases, you improve your revenue collection. This is important. Technology must also be used. We must not limit technology to mere payment of bills, remittances, and wages. Some people use this technology to pay wages to their staff. I strongly recommend this because it's going to be a game changer to use technology for tax payment. It will increase it and make it more efficient. I hope I give some idea that helps your question.
Of forex bureaus. He said, what are the it said, is that bad for foreign exchange management? You mentioned the issue of efficient management of the various agencies of the bureaus, but that is a problem only at the operational level of the individual forex bureaus. How is that a macro or economy-wide problem in the forex exchange market? More forex bureaus. How is that a problem economy-wide? Just one or two sentences,
Okay.
and we can move on to the next theme on this.
Okay. You see, I indicated that there has been kind of I understand from my research that the number of people that are coming, or the number of people that are interested in creating or establishing new bureaus, the applications basically, the way it is coming is so significant that they had to slow down the year somehow. So obviously, it's problematic. And also, secondly, some of these bureaus are totally inefficient. We want operational efficiency and also control, because the fewer, if we oblige them to match and create a situation where there will be takeovers, and you have big ones and efficient ones, that will be easier to manage than you have 200 or 300 of them, which will most of which will not be operationally efficient. So basically it's for efficiency reasons why they need to raise the capital. Perhaps it's too cheap, that's why so many is coming. So, and they will not be able to control it by slowing down. That's the basic reason. And
I think it's around $1 million to be able to open one, right?
Sorry?
Saying that the amount of capital required to open one, it's really not significant.
It's not significant.
Anyway,